welcome to the Girlboss Grindset, the world's hardest to schedule podcast. I am Keith D. Franks III. Had to check my notes on that one. And joining me is Hannah Ford Morgan. We are both Australian game designers working in the space. And today we wanted to talk a little bit about game design and manufacturing and how those things overlap. Because in starting out, when you design a game, you go, hey, this is my idea. And then you build the whole thing, and then you go to take it to the manufacturer to go and get it mass manufactured. And they're like, none of this stuff works, or none of this stuff fits, or whatever. And then you go, oh. And that happened to me a few times. And then what I started doing was designing stuff using the Game Crafter, which is a print-on-demand company that I'm a big fan of. Using their templates to design everything so that I knew that I could get a prototype from them. And then just lately, my latest project, I've done the opposite. I've done my whole own thing because I wanted everything to be custom and perfect to what is best for the design. And that's brought up a couple of roadblocks for me in particular. But I'm curious, have you had a similar problem with that? What's your kind of journey with that little center of the Venn diagram been like?
Over the course of various companies and clients, university and things, I think I've done sort of traditional card games where it's like a single deck and like tuck boxes and two-piece boxes and up to multi-board figurine, dice, token, all kinds of things, and RPGs and things like that. So I've found that, I mean, it's sort of like with the game design, really. Like, you have your initial attempt and see how it goes, and then once you start interacting with other people, you get feedback on what needs to improve. And in terms of going to a manufacturer, I think it's just part of the process, and because it can seem pretty nebulous when you haven't gone through it before. It's just a curious black box of like ideas go in, the game comes out.
Yeah.
To anticipate where you could, like the hurdles you might find, and then which ones you can with a little bit of prep in advance, like you did. So I think it'll be useful to just talk about maybe first like what the whole process is like.
Okay. That is a good place to start. That is a good place to start. Turn up my. Yeah. So I think my brief overlay of the process for me personally, because I work with a rep. Which is pretty common as I understand it. Because usually what has happened to me many times, existing on Facebook, and you post about having a game, a rep adds you and says, do you need a quote? And this has happened to me many times, at least 6 times from different manufacturers. And I have a bunch of them that I have pretty good working relationships with. And a lot of the time I'll be like, I have an idea. Is this possible? Is this cost viable? What kind of stuff can we do? So for me, what happens is I get the game idea. I message the rep and say, how cost viable is this? And like what kind of, because a lot of the time my ideas have new components and stuff I've never worked with. If it's just cards or whatever, I already kind of have an idea. And then they'll come back with a quote or a kind of an ballpark for what these kind of things are going to be. And then from there I go, yes, this is cost viable. No, this isn't cost viable. And then I'll expand on the design from that. Well, I most recently was working on a word dice game. Imagine Boggle, right? You've got your grid of 40 dice. And I wanted big chunky ones like Boggle has, but not wood. I wanted like nice acrylic ones or something. And they all have to be custom, right? Because they've all got a different letter configuration on them and stuff like that. And so knowing that on the Game Crafter, each of those individually is very expensive, I'm like, how is this just going to be way cost prohibitive? Because I need a lot of them, like, is it even going to be worth doing it? Yeah, right? And that might put your product into a price point, right? So if they go, it costs this much for you to have that many dice in the game, you're looking at margins and you go, okay, now that means the game must cost this much for me to sell it, to just not lose money on it in general. And then you have to figure out, is that a product that has that customer perceived value of being able to sell for that amount. Because the game that I was designing had the look and feel of Boggle, the average person looking at it would be comparing it at a price point to Boggle and stuff like that. And then like maybe you could make it look like it has more complexity or more depth to it, and then try and like bump up a little bit, or the extra big box size or something like that, to make it feel like it is a bigger, more valuable game. I think that's difficult to sometimes reconcile, because if they come back to you and they go, "Look, it's going to cost this much," and then you look at it and you go, "Well, this is like $100 RRP," the average customer is not going to buy that, you know?
They'll use a specific kind of calculation, won't they? Like a certain ratio or a certain like.
Yeah, depending on usually, and it's scaling, so it's like depending on how many orders you're going to do. So a lot of time, like the price will cut down in brackets, so it's like 500, 1,000, more, and then like as it increments up, it gets cheaper. But and then sometimes they'll be like, oh, but you could cut the size of the dice down for it to cost less, and all this kind of stuff as well. Um,
That they start suggesting
yeah, well, that's why I like the rep, right? Because he understands what I'm trying to do, and some things I'll be like, this is essential to be exactly like this, or sometimes I'll just be like, dude, just whatever. Like,
things. I was confusing rep with like agent. So I thought, yeah,
it's
he
yeah, it's
basically
not an agent. He's just a representative of the manufacturer. Yeah,
works for you, but actually you talk to the person at the company who is the like liaison
yeah,
manufacturing team. Okay, yeah, yeah. So I've had, yeah, I think, yeah, a bunch of contacts then.
yeah, because they're really good.
Very nice.
Yeah, and helpful, and often they have people internally that handle a lot of stuff like graphics design or like layout stuff, and they can help you touch and fix stuff. Because a lot of the time, what they've got set up to handle the files is going to be different from a manufacturer standard, or just the thing that you have prepared or whatever. And so there is a lot of process for them just to even translate what you've got to what they can process. And because everything's so custom, a lot of time there's like that on top, and they have to really understand what they're making, you know. So I think that whole process is fascinating in itself, and I think that is why it is worth sometimes talking about
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
this.
I'm a big advocate for early prototyping and sort of, going through and seeing what you actually feel you need in the game and in the design.
Mm.
Because what I've even started doing now is I'll just send just the files I have, like the cards and stuff, just as individual JPEGs, boards, sorry, PNGs, PDFs, and then being like, "Hello, can you just do your magic and
Making
send
this, yeah,
500 a thousand?"
yeah. Yeah,
And
when your game is just cards in a box, it makes it so easy for you to get a feel for the cost per unit, the
yeah,
complexity of the design, all that kind of stuff.
so I'd have to make like stuff. Do you have a
Yeah.
like Boggle?
Sorry, say again.
Do you have a lid like Boggle?
No, no, no. The grid is, Sagrada. The bottom half of Sagrada has a punch card, 2-layer punch card grid that's just got holes for the dice to sit in, and that's what I did. I did a 6x6, I think, of that. And so the idea was that that's just to rest the dice into, because you don't have to like actually roll the whole thing in the same way as Boggle.
Gotcha.
But like that's the thing. You go, okay, how close do I need to be to this existing design idea? How necessary are these things? How, all that kind of stuff. Could we go more complex for a deluxe option? Because sometimes when you're like, oh, but we have to cut down the die size to make this cost margin, and then your Kickstarter explodes, you might go, oh, hey, actually, remember that thing that we cut because it was not cost viable? We could just actually have a deluxe product that costs
Yeah,
extra money, and this is just a thing that we do for that.
yeah. And one thing when you're doing that sort of first step of quotation is kind of go like, "Hey, like, can you please send them three different versions of the same game and ask for three different quantities and three different, shipping
Yeah.
options? Just get them send you a big grid of
Mm.
price." Yeah, because there's a whole department that does that in most of these companies.
Mm.
Um, I think we may have blitzed past just talking about like maybe the general structure of how um, the process is overall.
Yeah, I think I got like 1/3 of the way into it and went on a tangent.
You've got quotation,
Yeah.
sampling,
Yeah.
um,
File submit. File submit.
files, and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and then I think like the arranging of like how everything will be shipped everywhere and understanding.
Yeah, so for me the process goes I complete the files on my end. I get the quote by giving them an understanding of what the product is going to be. We do file submit where I send them all the stuff and you get like a digital proof. You order a sample to be shipped to you, and normally I get a couple. So you see exactly what it's going to be in mass production. Sometimes when companies go to mass production, they will just get like number one out of 1,000 from the print run sent to them early. Um, I don't know that I agree with that personally. I want to see what it looks like. See if they mess everything up before I, have 1,000 going in.
Well, maybe that brought up like if you've done enough with them in the past, and
Yeah, you already have an understanding of what it's going to be like. Yeah. Yeah, getting a sample, and then they start mass production. And usually while they're in mass production, I get them to send me a couple of photos for marketing and stuff like that. And then after that, you've got them delivering it to the freight forwarder or the shipping handler and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
um, yeah. So maybe we could talk about like common problems that we've encountered,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, sort of what we try and do at the time to overcome them, and also how to prevent them. I guess.
Okay.
One each.
There's a really really easy one that I've encountered in my latest project where, sorry.
The like quotation.
No. This is with file prep actually, where I'm setting up all the stuff, and the GameCrafter standard for cards is 825 pixels by 1125 pixels for poker size cards, and I make everything in that size because I have that template saved on my Photoshop. I send it out to the manufacturer, and they go, "This is 98 DPI. We need 300 DPI," and I'm like, "This is what I've been using forever." This is the first time anyone said anything that there was a problem with it. When you change it to 300 DPI, the file size is triple. It's like 2400 by 3000 or something. Um, yeah, and it's so unexpected and weird to be able to have that sudden thing of oh no, I've not prepared correctly, or this thing that I thought was the standard is not the standard, or whatever. I just still haven't gotten out of the habit of the 825 1125 yet. Because I might still prototype with the Game Crafter, so yeah. Yeah. Seeing you do everything in PowerPoint is kind of crazy, honestly. I don't think I could do that.
Canva is just in PowerPoint of the internet.
Yeah.
Libraries. And AI text and AI. I think with the quotation part, the problem that I is that the quotes won't match the eventual price. And because sometimes the gap between the quote and then building the crowdfunding and doing all of this and doing files and finalizing everything and all that kind of stuff is kind of different to what the eventual price is, and it's usually higher.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like one thing I've tried to do in the past is when I get quotes and things, is to either like refresh them every 30 days if I remember.
They have a thing on it, written on it, that says this is valid for a period of time, which is usually 30 days.
But, yeah, so just sort of refreshing them. One other tip that I found is so good, I think kind of crucial as Australians, especially because I'm working in dollars, is to get them to quote you in your country's currency. So then you're not going to be affected by the exchange rate.
Yeah, true.
90% of the games are made.
True.
Higher because the exchange rate changed, and that was a big part of it. But now it's
yeah.
they're like, it's going to be this much in Australian dollars, and I'm like, great, done. And if you do that, then maybe.
Well, even if they quote you in Australian dollars, but then you can still pay in USD or whatever, like, yeah. Because I've gotten to the point where, yeah. I've gotten to the point where everything that I work in is USD. So in the product development for my latest game, pretty much everything has been like all the artists, all the everything has been done using USD, except for the cover art, which is a local bloke, lives in South Australia, and he goes, "Can you just bank transfer me an AUD?" I'm like, "What is this? This is new. I haven't done this before." Just PayPal. Just PayPal everything.
Oh, PayPal. Yeah, PayPal is also good because it
Yeah.
stores the money in the currency.
Well, I get paid from Patreon into PayPal, and then it just stays in the balance. And then whenever I'm paying artists, it just comes out of the balance. So I don't ever have to muck around with moving stuff around, which makes it really easy for me. I don't know how about. I mean, like anyone from the states watching this is gonna be like, "Why do I care? It's already my native currency. Stupid Australians with their stupid monopoly money."
For each other.
Yeah, I know. Why can't we just use the real dollar instead of the fake dollar?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But one thing I really liked about when you're talking about file submission is, yeah, that everyone needs different sizes for different things, basically.
Everything is unique, basically.
And the templates from manufacturers and stuff is really good.
Mm.
You can get them from, other people in the community.
Often you can just ask. Often you can go, "Hey, this is kind of what I'm trying to do. Can you get me a print safe template or something like that?" Like if you explain to them how big it's going to be, because I did that. I got because for my latest project, I've got a bifold board and a trifold board.
Whoa!
I know. That have to go in the same box, right? How stupid is that? So that they're sizes of the folding side, right? Have to be the same width so it fits in the box. And stuff like that. And I'm like, "Look, this is how big it's got to be. Can you send me a print template?" And then I just forward that to the graphics designer so that he can line it all up perfectly, right? But then I know confidently that when I send it to them, they're making the thing that is going to work in my head. And because the problem with the trifold board is we've got art where the folds are, we've got like columns, like pillars, like that holds up a building, pillars, like in where the fold is. So if it folds somewhere else, it looks stupid. So I'm like, this is how big it has to be, all right?
One of the characters' faces in the fold. So
Yeah. Yeah, I worry about that as well.
print, but I remember just being like,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
One thing with manufacturing that I think would be interesting in understanding the process and what you do for it is that a lot of people say that you need to get custom designed and shaped plastic inserts for your game
Mm.
and pay for it to the manufacturer and stuff like that, and that can be up to like $1,000 US.
Mm. Yeah, the
I have
vacuum molded.
pay for one of those to be made.
Mm. Do your games even have them?
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Just Xenohunters, right? Because the other stuff is just cards in a box, right?
Plastic insert.
Really?
Yes.
Because the last two games I've done, they've gone rather than do that, we're just going to shrink the box size so there is no empty space.
That's nice of them, but yeah, like I don't think you should have to pay for it. Some people say it's like an absolutely critical step, but because
Mm.
it costs so much money, I think it might be one of those things where like, if you ask as part of the quote,
Mm.
how much will it be for a custom insert, then they will go, oh, yeah, we'll charge you for that. But they have stuff there where, so this is what happened at my previous manufacturer,
Mm.
as well, is they just have these metal blocks that are the shape and the size, or wood, or something, of the components
Mm.
that you have, and they literally just stack them and then shrink the thing over it.
Yeah. That's how the vacuum mold works.
So
Yeah.
way to say up to like $1,000 is just don't ask for a custom plastic insert.
Yeah.
But don't say custom because they will be like, oh, they want us to design a special one for
Yeah.
them, and then here's the money, and you
Okay.
think it's special,
But it's not really that different. Okay.
and it might not be like perfectly shaped to the stuff in your box. So if you want that, then go for it. But like
Yeah.
I think like we've seen in like the shape of your insert is not going to be as critical to the success or the reception of the game as
True. Well, Moonshell, one of my favorite games, the insert is dog shit. There's several components I just can't get out. Even by getting underneath and squishing the whole thing inside out is difficult to get out because they've just not put a finger hole in it.
Yeah, that's right. But you still get the game, you still enjoy it.
The
So
game's great. It's one of my favorites.
yeah. So I think yeah, like, and if you go to like Target or
Mm.
Walmart, any large company that has these massively successful, they don't even have inserts.
No.
It's just grey plastic, like grey cardboard inside.
Yeah.
Like shit, and everything's
Yeah. For my latest game, I'm just gonna put it in a sandwich bag, and then everyone can figure it out.
yeah, that's right.
That'd be sick. Like a knapsack, big, old handkerchief kind of thing. Yeah.
In terms of the shipping, we've sort of covered, like get files together and
Hmm.
manufacturing. Do you want to talk a bit about like shipping your stuff around, like how that's integrated into the manufacturing process? Because
Yeah.
really the Kickstarter do that, or sending stuff out once you have all the stock. It's like, what's your experience with that kind of stuff?
Um. So, first of all my experience is pre-Chinese container crisis, which I think means a lot of it will be mathematically different today, probably more expensive
Yeah,
today.
I think
My
procedurally similar.
It's possible. And the first game that I did, Castles of Kalira, it was very, very small that we could mail it out like a postcard. So we did direct fulfill from factory.
Yes.
Yeah, to the customer instead of using fulfillment centers. I haven't made a game big enough yet to have to use fulfillment centers, which just saves you so much money and hassle, honestly. So I haven't really had to worry about that too much. The main thing that does stick out to me that um, I feel like if you haven't ever gotten a quote from a manufacturer before, it's worth looking out for it. If you have done it before, you probably already know about it. Which is the the cost of getting the games from the manufacturer to the dock where it is shipped out is part of the quote. It's called landed or something. Not. It has a word. Maybe it's not landed. It has a word that I don't know unless if I open up the quote, and if I open up the quote, it will be on the screen in front of where my face is. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. So what is like the total of like shipping a
Okay,
manufacturer?
so that's not the word I'm looking for.
Is it different?
Uh, I don't remember. I don't remember. This wasn't something I think was going to have to refresh myself for today. But usually that cost is included in the quote.
Yeah, I would
Um,
expect for that to be included.
mm,
Yeah, so like my experience with shipping stuff around, I've done sort of I think like 22 different products to various parts of the world. The things I found in common are that you can have the like from the factory to the door shipping
mm-hmm,
all as part of your initial manufacturing quote, which made
mm.
it a lot easier. So I didn't have to.
Yeah, if it's a smaller game that's doing individual fulfillment, then yes, it's very easy to, because a lot of the manufacturers, especially the smaller ones I've worked with, have their own fulfillment center in there for this specifically. Because a lot of the time they're not just board game manufacturers. Like if you get Panda Manufacturing, that's the one thing they do. If you work with a smaller manufacturer, games are probably a percentage. They might just have a whole section that just makes dice and just sells dice to like big bundle dice to like discount stores or whatever. And so those things will individually fulfilled to a retailer. Right, that's what their main dollar income
Yeah, I
is.
think that's an interesting idea. And like if you're at the smaller end of the scale and not producing sort of stuff where it's bigger box and things like that.
Mm,
But what I've done in the past is just had to have everything shipped first to my house because I had like a drop,
yeah.
but now to partner place to ePrint because they've got a little bit of a receiving dock and they can
Okay.
do it for a week or so until I can stick it on my car and take it to my garage. But the reason I've done that is so that I can like individually fulfill just myself. Because when it's between 100 and 200 copies, it's not
It's not that bad.
taking a
Yeah.
couple of days,
Yeah.
which sounds like a lot and might be too much for some people, but compared to
Yeah.
the cost of employing a fulfillment person, or even from like, and the unreliability and like lower quality service and non customizability
Mm.
of reward fulfillment,
Well, sending individual packages worldwide is
Not very
easier.
efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's just like a single base reward tier fulfillment for crowdfunding, yeah, I think absolutely you can just do it from the factory. Just make sure it's like a good national or state, you know,
Not
ship.
FedEx. Don't let them just FedEx it to everyone.
Yeah, or don't even
Jesus Christ. I want to get put in the ring and fist fight FedEx daily. These
yeah.
guys are the worst. Honestly. FedEx, if you're watching this, hit me up. I'm ready to get in the octagon. Like, for real.
I'd like to see that. Yeah, game versus.
How funny would that be? We just like settle all the industry beef by getting in the octagon. Like, just me and a random FedEx employee. Like,
Yeah, I think that can actually bet on. But
I'd get wrecked. I'd get folded like a sheet of paper. I am absolutely not physical fit in any way, but
I think
it'd be cathartic for sure.
like the FedEx person would probably be tired from like a day of delivering and stuff.
Yeah, that's the handicap I get. They have to come off a 9 to 5 and then fight me. It's not on a
Yeah,
weekend.
you just wake up later and feeling fresh.
Yeah.
So in terms of, there's also where you pay the taxes and stuff before, which I think is DDU,
Mm.
and then there's as part of the whole quote, and then there's where you pay taxes after, and I think that's called BUD or DUD or something like that. So
Okay.
something to keep track of. I tend to separate out stuff as much as possible,
Yeah.
just so that like yeah, the amount of money coming out is smooth and not like a giant
Mm.
um, one other thing to note, I think, with the manufacturing process as a whole, is that to get the print started, you'll need like 30%
Mm.
of the run.
A deposit kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like some massive companies that deal with manufacturers can arrange things where it's like they only send through the balance when the goods arrive at the destination.
Mm.
But you, as a smaller creator, will most likely not have that leverage and have to pay once the games are made, and they send you a photo saying here they all are, but before it actually leaves the factory. So
Yeah.
I've had a situation as well where there was like a delay on the funds coming in, and so we were able to negotiate having half of the stock shipped
Mm-hmm.
prior to the payment of the balance,
Mm-hmm.
to then help build up the money to pay off the balance, and then it all worked out okay in the end. But I think that's one thing to know is like yeah, just in general, like they're people like you and like us, and they're trying to run a business, and they're trying to they're open to creative solutions to problems that pop up. Um, so yeah, if anything goes wrong, you can always just talk to them and not panic immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or panic,
Exactly.
but then yeah, you
Panic
someone
first, then
get
solve
the
problems.
stuff out of
Yeah.
their warehouse
Yeah.
somewhere else and
Yeah.
figure this out.
And a lot of them, and this is why I like the rep, because a lot of them are really
Yeah,
invested in maintaining a good relationship with you. Because to them, you might be spending a couple $1,000s this one time, but if they do a really good job and you're really happy with them, they're under the expectation that if that game ever gets reprinted, it's
yeah,
a 1 second communication between you and them, and they just
yeah,
send you a bill.
yep. Um, yeah, and after you've dealt with them for a little bit, I think you can just be like, also ask for a discount. Be like, hey, can I have 5% off?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Building a good relationship with a particular manufacturer, I think, is pretty important. Because my problem right now is I have a favorite. I'm not gonna drop names. But my favorite right now is based in China, and it's entirely shut down because of COVID,
Yeah,
which is really a problem for me, and it's put a 2 month delay into my launch plans.
bonkers.
So far to the point where I'm using a whole second manufacturer to get a sample made of the game,
Yeah,
which might mean that I end up just having to use a whole nother manufacturer because they're just shut down for too long and I won't be able to do anything in my time frame. Which
yeah,
sucks because they've printed a previous game of mine and they're a much smaller manufacturer and their quality is insane and their pricing is insane, right? So I want to stick with them obviously because I have that customer loyalty. They're doing good by me and all this kind of stuff. And then now I'm stuck having to
yeah,
use someone else because they can't fulfill my orders.
yeah. You just need to keep the gears turning. But
Yeah.
you know, once they're back online, you can just take everything over because in
Exactly.
the contract, it's per run. You don't like
Exactly.
2 years of volume anymore.
Yeah.
That could be something to offer though, if you really like it. Be like, hey, I will use you as my exclusive manufacturer if you give me a 10% discount across the board. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I am releasing this many products every year. I'm printing
Yeah,
this many
yeah,
copies of
right,
thing every year. I'll sign an
yeah.
exclusivity deal with you. This is
And
like
not
my stupid Woolworths. Woolworths has this thing where they're like, look, if you sign up for this $15 a month, I think it is, or something like that, thing, that gives you free shipping on all your grocery orders for the month. Or shipping or delivery, right? And then you're like, well, if I get groceries every week, 4 weeks, each one of those would have been $15 every time. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. You're like, look, if I'm printing out this many orders, could you give me, a discount on this kind of thing?
I'm actually thinking in terms of my like outreach to retail strategy for this year.
I'm still trying to figure out how to do that myself, honestly.
Yeah. Well, give me your stuff. That's But one thing I'm going to try and do is I have quantity discount. So
Mm,
when up to 5 copies and then 6 to 9 copies and then 10 or more. So it's
okay.
like percentages.
And the one
Um,
free one for the store demo is really, really requested.
yeah, I think offering that is awesome. But what I'm thinking of doing is letting people go on a bulk split invoicing kind of
Mm-hmm.
plan thing. So they sign up for 12 copies, but then they can choose the intervals at which and get that low price for all of them. But the
Okay.
intervals at which they actually want to be invoiced and have the stock delivered.
Okay.
And so yeah, and because it's 12, you can actually do it in, like two
Two
copies
lots of six or something.
or 4 copies per month for 3 months, something like that.
Okay.
Or 2 months and 6 copies per thing. And yeah, and so the part of the deal is that, especially if it's during this quieter time of the year,
Mm.
and especially when it's a new product that would need to maybe build up over time,
Mm.
it's less of a risk, I think. So, and um, for me, it sort of makes the cash flow more even as well. Because
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
get
instead
10,
of getting a big burst all at once. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. So, if I spend a week, do it for a day, and I get
Okay.
or for a month, like 10 deals or something.
I guess
And
that's something interesting to think about
yeah, but
because with
with
Kickstarter,
sales,
but
it's
yeah, that too.
yeah. So my mental health just fucked for the last month and a bit, and I
Mm.
haven't been able to just do outreach heaps and call and stuff like that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so hopefully something like that could ride the waves. But I think you can do that with manufacturing is the key thing.
Yeah, well, because your Kickstarter completes, you get a gigantic pile of cash,
Yeah,
and then it evaporates. Right?
yeah,
And if it is entire, so this is the problem I had with the Castles of Killer campaign, was that I had a lot of these front loaded costs, the entire kitty vanished, and then the shipping bill came around and I had nothing. I was also homeless and unemployed. And I basically had to use my tax return, like the entire tax return, and get as much as I could out of it to pay for the shipping thing, because that was all the money I had in the world.
yeah,
And so when you're going, okay, maybe if we had been able to split these things up, not paying for the manufacturing all on day one, and like maybe all these other things, you do have some flexibility to handle when these big financial problems kind of come in. And so if
yeah,
you're doing something like that, like you're splitting the manufacturing, you're getting, like especially if you have a whole bunch of retailers on board, you're separating that out. When these big burdens come in, you go, okay, I do actually have a retailer that is going to pick up some stuff here that I know they're going to get a bit of cash coming in here that might solve this problem and stuff. You're able to spread it out so that you're less single point of failure where you're just running on empty all the time. You're like running on medium all the time.
yeah. That's the goal. Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, I'm really interested to see how things go in terms of. It feels like the industry for the manufacturing is moving more towards like more frequent, smaller runs and having the price not be like stupidly higher.
It depends.
Yeah,
So, for example, Launch Tabletops just kind of popped up, and they've said we want to do quantities anywhere between 1 and 1,000.
yeah,
Which is insane because the traditional architecture is 1,000 is the minimum. And then if you really argue with them, you could get maybe 500. All right. And then it's kind of transitioned more to being able to do 500 is a little bit more of a standard, especially for like a lot of smaller people. Like 500 is a much less risk option.
Yeah.
And then you're able to just do another 500 later. Like it's not a huge deal, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And you can do a second edition, which is so. I started advising people in terms of planning the games and stuff like that. Look, okay, it's very hard to make money out of Kickstarter anyway, but it's pretty easy. Well, not easy, but you're far more likely to be able to fund, make, and fulfill for like a very, very small margin, if any, a first edition of your game through crowdfunding and stuff like that. But then it's out there and you're selling it, and then the word is getting out and all this kind of stuff, and also you're getting feedback. And then you can do another run and maybe even have a bit of a higher target. But because you're building up that trust in yourself and the product and like the connections, and you're actually taking feedback and be like, hey, like I've updated it, it looks really good.
Yeah.
So like
Add that little bit of polish to the top, slightly deluxe or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and just sort of keep rolling and building it up. And as you get bigger and bigger, that's when the margin starts coming. But it's not like you have to wait until you get that margin before you start getting your game out there.
Yeah, that's cheekily what I'm about to do. So Castle of Clear came out in 2017. We printed 1,000 copies. We should have printed 500 copies. Printed 1,000 copies. I still have 50 just on me. I keep that thing on me.
Sitting around.
Yeah. And then the last, because I have a retail deal with one store, and that one store is running on their last runs of amounts. So I'm like, I'm getting close to maybe doing a second edition where I get to fix some of the things like the rule book, which was abhorrent, and replace some of the problems that we did, and like maybe add a whole bunch of extra cards, because there's been a bunch of cards that have been released in other little things here and there, and we could go and put this all in there and do like a Masters collection or a fancy deluxe kind of thing, slightly bigger box, all this kind of stuff, and come and do that, and then do a small print line of like 500. And then that gets to go to the retailer. The retailer gets restocked, but it's a whole new product, different price point. It's deluxe in its own way, and it can be alongside the original one until the original one runs out. And then you go, oh no, we just have the deluxe thing or whatever. And then I get a personal copy to show people, and I get a bunch of shit filling up my closet alongside the original one or whatever, however I want to do it. And I think that is the thing. With what you mentioned before, it is really hard to turn a profit on a Kickstarter campaign, and realistically, you won't. Even if you go really, really big, the bigger you go, the more copies you have to make, the more your costs are, right? And so, for example, yeah, exactly. Yeah. For example, with Castles, we made 1,000. It ran out all of the money I had and then some, and it didn't break even until 3 years later. In selling copies all over the place, right? But then in doing that, everything that happens after that point is profit. All of it, every single bit, and so that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah, like if you plan your crowdfunding effectively, you can maybe get like 20% on top of all the costs that'll go into it. But then once you have the copies in the country, like excess copies from the manufacturer. Yeah. Oh, and yeah. I guess another tip as well is when you're getting your quotations. Yeah, like as much as possible, try and get get estimates for more copies than you think you would need to fulfill the crowdfunding. So yeah, I like the minimum that I do now is do quotations and stuff for 100, because then I'm like, okay, cool. Like if I get like 60 to 80 backers, then there's still some more to keep going and like
okay. Because on standard, I think they do 500, 1,000, 2,000. Well, that's what all the ones I get look like.
Like print and
like.
Where it's the margin is like it's like the RP is like 2 times the cost, but like I think it's sort of print on demand almost.
Yeah, a lot of the print on demand stuff will just show you, and you can just slide along how much or how little it has to be.
Yeah, but with something like Problems, which is now distribution and stuff like that, I can start getting like 3 times manufacturing. Like, the demand's there and start doing it. But you can absolutely start off making like as long as it's costing, as long as you're getting costs to make the thing, you can build on it.
Yeah.
And replace the copies if you need to. order larger and larger amounts. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just one of the tea part of the episode is that I get very strict with large personalities in the community that say like there's no point unless you can have a 5 to 7 times multiplier.
Yeah, I
You
know.
not be able to do that as a starting person. So what, you just don't try?
Yeah. The other thing is that, and to use a good comparison, right? In cinema, big
Yeah,
franchises will lose a lot of money on the first movie as a loss leader to get people invested in stuff that's coming forwards. So you as a designer, while you are a hobby designer and not a professional in the space, can just lose money on your projects. That is okay. Because what that means is you've done it once,
planned for
right?
it.
People
Yeah,
trust that you didn't butcher the whole thing. So you've gained back a trust. You've gained industry reputation. You've
yeah,
gained networking. You've gained manufacturing knowledge of the process. You probably got your own manufacturing content, like contacts, all this kind of stuff. So when you go and do it again, you are 5 times more likely to succeed, right? And you don't need to necessarily have made money from the first thing to prove that the next thing is going to do good.
yeah. On the back end, it's just and I sort of look at it sometimes like marketing.
It is
Just
marketing. Kickstarter is just marketing.
building it up. Yeah. Even just
Audience building by handing them a game.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If there is something physical, they're, I think, much more likely to want to engage with it and stuff than something that's purely theoretical.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not smoothing it out.
Yeah, and I think that's actually an interesting distinction between video games and board games because often I've participated in exactly one video game Kickstarter, right? And this is a game called, I think it's Exoplanet by Alice Steam. I think it's the name of the company that made it. And I backed it in like 2015 or something, 2014, some ridiculous aeon ago, and it's still getting regular updates and it's not done. The game is out, you can play it, but the scope of what they're building in is incomplete.
Is it
Um,
VR?
no,
Is it
no,
first?
it's yeah, First Contact, yeah,
This looks sick.
yeah, it is sick.
It's like
Recently,
Dundee in space. It's fucking cool.
yeah, exactly, right. And so this game I backed years and years and years ago, and it came out. They delivered it to us, and then, but the thing is, the game funds on Kickstarter delivered to backers. And then constantly this game is being updated over time. And they're working on this one project forever. And the way that your audience is building, your original Kickstarter doesn't get to implement everything after the kind of the game is delivered, right? Whereas with board games, you go, okay, game one delivered. Maybe I do an edition 2. That's a whole nother Kickstarter. Maybe I do a different game. That's a whole nother Kickstarter, bringing in a whole new market of people, a whole new price point, all this kind of stuff. More things. The audience builds, and then all these little projects come together and do this one thing. When you're doing something that's on like a subscription model or like a Patreon, or like a game that constantly updates, it's really difficult to do that. And especially because you have like follower fatigue and stuff like that, where they kind of drop off, they give up on your product or whatever. Whereas with a board game, you have to get in. You go, this is the game, you want it. It's cool as fuck. Get in here. Gets on the Kickstarter, you monetize it straight away. They buy a copy. You need to not muck around and get it on their table. They receive it. You did a good job. You've earned back a trust. Okay. Hey, I have another Kickstarter. They go, that last one was really good. I'm going to get on this next thing. Right? And then, especially because it's connected to your account, they follow your account, they're getting connected to all the updates, all this kind of stuff, all these kind of social metrics and all this kind of shit. And then you're building up all these things. If your first Kickstarter loses heaps of money but gains a lot of backer trust, doesn't matter. You've already earned money on the next Kickstarter campaign, and so on.
Yeah, I think it's looking at it as like a step in the career as a game designer and not just as a single product. Can make a lot of the stuff make a bit more sense about.
Yeah, you're building a portfolio as if you're a novelist, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so which is interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've covered a lot of stuff today. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
We've still got about 15 on the clock. If there was any other stuff that you wanted to run on in that kind of category.
I can do a fun personal update, which is stuff.
Say that again. You cut out like right at the key part of that sentence.
Oh, okay. I didn't say anything. No. exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I saw that update. I was scrolling the Facebook. So
Yeah,
that is exciting.
it's doing that. Like that. So,
This could actually be like a weird timeline, like as the podcast comes out. We get to see you
yeah,
change
right.
over the period of
Right.
time.
Yes.
You get to go look back at
Well,
old episodes and cringe. Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. I think I don't want to like overload people too much, I guess, because there's so
Mm.
many, it's so deep, so many things that go into it. But yeah, I think it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to reach out to people, and you know, yeah, maybe we could, yeah, just ask folks like what they might want to hear in the future, or
Hmm.
um, any questions or things like that.
For sure.
Uh,
Well, I feel like when we're talking about projects and stuff that we're working on, the
yeah,
average person watching things would be interested in the current projects that we're working on. Which for you, I actually saw that you put up a Facebook page or something like that for the game that we were talking about in the last episode, Jupiter's something.
oh, yeah, Desolation Jupiter. Yeah,
Desolation Jupiter. I saw that and I was like, I know something about this.
yeah.
Um, so
So
what's that? That's your current slate project?
Um, yeah, I guess it's the next one. It's just sort of, out of the top of stuff, it's like what's bubbled to the top.
Okay.
But yeah, so in terms of applying some of the stuff that we've talked about in planning
Mm-hmm.
that project, and I'm trying to improve as well how I do all this kind of stuff. I'm going to go for three different kind of scales, and my stretch
Okay.
goals are actually going to be just informing the audience really that, if the funding gets to this amount, this is what the game can be like.
Okay, that's kind
Um,
of cool.
yeah, which I guess is what stretch goals are, but sometimes stretch goals only really do like material upgrades or things like that. But I'm going to be talking about like um, yeah, like sizes and dimensions
Yeah,
and
whole different box size, whole
yeah,
different component
like with
sizing.
yeah, like with Xeno Hunters, we actually were able to get 2 extra boards because we hit a certain
Mm.
skeleton. It wasn't, and we made that content
Mm.
for it. We didn't like hold it back or anything. Not that anyone does that, but yeah. So what I'm gonna do is the base version of it all is gonna be different moons of Jupiter, and they're just little
Mm-hmm.
card
Okay.
I've got from ePrint, which is where I want to print it through. They can do 4 53 card decks in a thing, and that's for like a 20 to $25.
Okay.
So yeah, for under 100 copies, like that's not too bad. If so, it's 2,500, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever the shipping would be, hypothetically. So the target would maybe be 3 grand.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next tier up that I'd really like to do, so that's completely card based. But
Mm.
then if I was able to get to a certain other amount, then that I'm still figuring out. I don't just have 212 cards to work with and a rule book. I can start going like, okay, well, we can maybe add some tokens. We can do this. We can do that. We can change and augment the experience in a bit of a way. And so yeah, rather than just upgrades, it'll be like evolutions of the game and the format and the feel of how it all works. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, because I'd rather folks really like the idea,
Mm.
get it out to them. But so what I'm going to be doing is doing a couple of tiers based on like ePrint prices and stuff. Like if I need like 100 copies or 200, maybe. But then I'm thinking of using as the intermediate between I'll do comparing from 200 to 400 copies.
Mm-hmm.
Funding gets that high. So maybe launch tabletop and seeing how they
Yeah,
go.
LTT looks really good to me.
Yeah, and then anything from like 4 to 500 plus will
Mm.
be through more traditional manufacturers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the
So I think
clients I
that's
was working, yeah,
actually so that we can actually really tie back to what we've been talking about. I kind
yeah,
of thought this earlier, but there really is a scale for small to huge that you can do, and selecting your manufacturer fits in that spot, right? So
yes,
if you're doing a print run to 500 and you're pretty small, then you do something like Gamecraft to launch tabletop. You do print on demand. Then if you're kind of where I am, where you're doing between 500 and 1,000, and that's it. There's really no chance of you going much bigger than that. Then you find a smaller manufacturer. And I have a bunch of smaller manufacturers that I prefer because They do really good quality stuff and don't make you feel like you're some insignificant ant in the grand scheme of things in the industry, right? Which was my experience with Longpack. And then when you're fucking humongous, right, too big to fail, and you're doing 4,500 plus whatever print runs, then you're looking at Panda, you're looking at Longpack, you're looking at like the actual big names to do these kind of things, and then you're kind of catering your best choice for your needs, right?
Yeah, I think the days of like, the 500 to 1,000 or don't even bother is
Yeah.
over. You can scale it nowadays, and it can all be pretty much the same stuff, and it's really just the margin that goes up or down, and that margin can grow over time as the product and yourself gets more established. So yeah, yeah, and then one day you can, do it where it's like for your own projects, it's like minimum 1,000 because you've got
Mm.
going up.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You're
What do you
building
think?
your networking. You're building your retailer base. Yeah.
But yeah, when you're starting out, I don't know if
Mm.
it was like 15 minutes worth of content, but
No.
um,
No. We are close. We are close.
yeah,
Then on my end, I've
mm,
I've been much less productive than you have. I am stuck because my main manufacturer's locked down due to COVID. I did mention that earlier. And then the people I'm working with at the moment, I'm currently doing file submit. Where we're going through, we're doing all the e-proofs, we're doing all the finalization and stuff like that. And because I'm going through this process at the moment, I was like, actually, maybe this is a good topic for us to bring up on the podcast. Um, because obviously we don't want to do hard hitting stuff like gender in the industry every single time because they are tough conversations to have. And
yeah,
a lot of people aren't going to be interested in some of the tough conversations to have, but people are going to be interested in stuff that does happen, in stuff that is going on. And so I do maybe kind of want to do more stuff like that, but maybe not super often. But I am also interested in just like the average person getting in the comment section and being like, "Hey, Keith, you big piece of shit. This is what I want to know about.
like
Can you guys talk about this one thing or whatever?"
topics, like anything.
Yeah.
I think we should add 2 segments to the podcast. One would be, this is bullshit, and then we talk about just one thing that we think is bullshit. Start off with that.
This is
And then
bullshit. Game award shows.
oh yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah, that was what our last
Oh,
episode was going to be.
oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, so we thought this was bullshit.
Yeah, we were wrong.
Forever, and now we sort of understand.
Yeah,
So yeah, my sort of enmity and animosity towards the
yeah,
my disagreements.
yeah. There's also like a lot of
Contributing, I've tempered down because I've had like a lot of discussions with people out of doing this kind of thing. Okay.
yeah,
But I still think that there should be more support for people wanting to go outside of that traditional structure.
yes,
But yeah, it definitely has a place, and there's definitely reasons things are like that. And I guess isn't it? Yeah, we just need to all talk about it and figure out if there's a better
and
way.
help people. This is what we're trying to do: is help people walk along the path we've cut, right? I had a thing. I've lost my thing. What was my thing? I had a
Your
thing.
thing has been great, and you never lost it.
Oh my god. Oh no.
It'll come up the second you end the episode.
Yeah, I know.
You can put that in the comments.
How embarrassing. I'm just getting blanker by the minute. I'm having a himbo moment. It's all gone. No, it's back to me. I wanted to be talking more about mental stuff because we did mention we do want to do a mental health episode, but a lot of game design and running your own business isn't just making a game. In fact, making a game is the fucking smallest part of it, would you believe?
20% of it.
So I do want to do an episode where we talk about stuff like managing your mental health, which I think would be important. But there's also a lot of other minor things in that category that we can cover as well, which comes from helping each other out and doing things like that. Because in the industry, we're a lot less like a bunch of idiots at the same buffet. We're actually all a bunch of people that work at the same office. Really, we're just not employed by the same company, and it would help us to work together and do things like a lot.
Yeah. And I think, when we're trying to pick the topic for this episode, I think like got a bit nervous about talking about certain things because, like they're so crunchy and in depth, I suppose. And
Mm.
but yeah, I've been thinking about it and sort of looking at some other podcasts and what they do and stuff like that. And I think that as long as we preface that everything we're talking about is from our experience and
Yes.
that we're open to new information, and that the whole point is that we want to learn as well
Yes.
from everyone.
I want to
Yeah,
be wrong. I
and
want to be proven wrong so I can learn.
yeah,
Yeah.
which have more perspectives because like gender and stuff in the industry, like we obviously have our own situations, but yeah, and I think in terms of like mental health and stuff like that, when it's something like that, we don't have to say like, okay, we know everything about mental health and how it works. We can say here are our challenges with mental health, and here's how
Mm.
we pass
Mm.
those things, or haven't yet, still trying to find answers and stuff like that. So yeah, like in the for everyone watching in the comments, like let us know if that sounds okay. But I think that might be a way that we can still comment on interesting topics, but not worry so much that we're gonna be called
Mm.
delusional idiots more so
Yeah.
than we call ourselves.
Delusional idiots. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, that is actually our time. We did actually
Okay.
pretty well to fill a slot. I thought this was going to be a bumble of an episode, but it was actually not that bad. If you've been enjoying the Girlboss Grindset, hopefully not personally, and hopefully the podcast and not your own grind, um, check us out on some of the socials below. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You can find all of my stuff here. That's me, and then below that is a bunch of stuff. You can find a lot of Hannah's stuff. Ready? Just point like this. Ready? No, that's yeah, like that. You can click on those things to go and find us in those places. No, it's to the side. It's to the side.
Oh,
Ready? Ready? Yeah.
is
But
that
yeah,
cool?
yeah, right. Okay. No, I have it side by side. But yeah, this has been the Girl Boss Grindset. Hopefully, this is a series that will help you learn a bit more about the Australian board game industry and your own journey as a designer. And that's the thing, if you've ever had an idea about how a board game could be made for the better, you're a game designer. Sucked in.
Definitely.
Uh,
So you'll be going out venting about stuff you're frustrated about.
100%.
Monthly group therapy.
Yes. Join us for therapy next week on Friday. Same
Well, this
same
time,
place. Yeah, same place, same
a
time.
week on Jupiter. But yeah,
Yeah,
all right, get that.
that's it. All right, bye bye now. See you next time.